What if the secret to influence wasn't in what you say, but in how deeply you make others feel seen? People don't remember your title, your status, or even most of your words. They remember how you made them feel in your presence. Every human being carries an invisible sign that reads, "Make me feel important." There is a profound shift that occurs the moment you decide to step out of the narrow confines of self-concern and step fully into the world of another human being. Think about it. Most of the time our minds are busy constructing narratives, busy protecting our identities, busy projecting what we want others to think of us. And yet, when you meet someone who is genuinely interested in you, not for what you can give them, not for how you can benefit them, but simply because they are present with you, you feel it instantly. You relax, you open, you trust. This is the essence of true influence, the kind that endures far beyond surface interactions. Genuine interest is not a tactic. It is not about pretending to care. It is a state of being that must be cultivated from within. When you give your full attention to another, when you look into their eyes and truly listen, not planning your reply, not calculating your response, but receiving them, you are communicating something far more powerful than words. You are communicating that they matter, that their existence carries weight, that in this moment they are not invisible, they are seen. Human beings have an innate longing to feel significant. At the core of almost every action, every pursuit, every achievement lies the deep desire to matter to someone, to be recognized, to be acknowledged. And yet, in a world filled with constant distractions, with glowing screens and fragmented attention spans, people rarely receive that gift. Most conversations are transactional, hurried, or self-serving. And that is why genuine interest has the power to transform any relationship. It is rare, and therefore it is magnetic. When you step into the space of true interest, something remarkable happens in your own physiology. Your nervous system shifts out of survival mode, your breath deepens, your body relaxes, you are no longer grasping for control of the conversation. Instead, you are attuning, and this state of attunement does not go unnoticed. The other person feels it. They may not be able to articulate it, but they sense that they are safe with you, safe to speak, safe to express, safe to reveal who they really are. And when people feel safe, they open up. They connect, they lean in. Genuine interest creates resonance. Think of resonance as a kind of invisible harmony between two beings. When you are deeply listening, when you are sincerely curious about another's story, you create a vibrational alignment. They feel seen, you feel expanded, and together the conversation takes on a life of its own. Influence does not happen because you demanded it. Influence happens because, in that space of interest, people want to align with you. They want to listen to you, trust you, follow you, not because they have to, but because they choose to. This is why leaders who embody genuine interest are remembered long after their words are forgotten. It is not the logic of their arguments, but the presence of their being that leaves an imprint. Consider the times in your own life when you felt deeply heard. Maybe it was a mentor, a friend, a teacher, or even a stranger. Do you remember how it felt? The calmness that washed over you? The sense that, for once, you didn't have to prove anything, because someone was simply with you, holding space for you. That experience is rare, and that is why it is unforgettable. When you practice genuine interest, you are not just learning about the other person's story. You are stepping into a higher level of consciousness. You are training yourself to release the grip of ego. The ego always wants to bring the conversation back to itself. Let me tell you my story. Let me share my accomplishment. Let me correct you. But when you set the ego aside, when you instead choose curiosity, tell me more. How did that feel for you? What happened next? You expand the container of connection. And here is where the true magic unfolds. Genuine interest is reciprocal. The more you offer it, the more it returns to you. People naturally mirror the state they receive. When you are sincerely curious, they too become curious about you. When you listen deeply, they too want to listen to you. Influence is no longer something you must force. It emerges organically from the field of connection you have cultivated. Science even supports this. Studies in neuroscience reveal that when a person feels truly heard, their brain releases oxytocin, the hormone of trust and bonding, their defenses lower, their capacity for empathy rises, their willingness to collaborate expands. In other words, when you give genuine interest, you are not only shaping the emotional tone of the interaction, you are altering the very chemistry of the brain. You are rewiring the experience of connection in real time. And yet, genuine interest cannot be faked. People are finely tuned to detect insincerity. If your curiosity is mechanical, if your attention is half-hearted, they will sense it, even if they cannot explain how. True interest requires presence. It requires setting aside the endless chatter of your mind and becoming deeply engaged with the other. It requires silencing the impulse to jump in with your own story and instead surrendering to theirs. And while this may feel unnatural at first, with practice it becomes a way of being, a way of approaching every human interaction as an opportunity to honor the other's significance. The beauty of this principle is its simplicity. You do not need advanced degrees, you do not need wealth or power, you do not need special status. Every single person you encounter offers you the chance to embody genuine interest. It may be the colleague at work, the stranger at the coffee shop, the friend who has been waiting for your attention, or the family member who longs to be seen. In each moment, you have the ability to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary simply by choosing to care, choosing to listen, choosing to be present. And as you do, you begin to notice something profound shifting not only in your relationships, but within yourself. Because the more you give genuine interest, the more expansive you become. You begin to realize that connection is not about getting attention. It is about giving it. It is not about what you receive. It is about what you radiate. And in radiating interest, in offering your presence fully, you discover a deeper truth about influence. It is not about convincing. It is about connecting. There is an energy that speaks before words ever leave your mouth. It is transmitted through your eyes, through the softness of your face, through the warmth that radiates from your presence. A smile is one of the most powerful, universal expressions of this energy. It transcends language, it bridges cultural barriers, it cuts through tension, dissolves resistance, and creates an atmosphere of openness. When you smile sincerely at someone, you are sending a signal that says, "You are safe here, you are welcome, you are acknowledged." A genuine smile does something extraordinary in the brain. Neuroscientists have discovered that when a person sees a smile, their mirror neurons fire and their own brain begins to simulate the emotion behind it. This means that your smile does not simply stay with you, it transfers, it shifts the physiology of the other person, it changes their emotional state in that moment, often without them even realizing why. In a world where stress, worry, and pressure dominate people's inner lives, this simple gesture becomes a gift. It becomes a way of elevating the atmosphere around you. But a smile without authenticity is hollow. People are deeply intuitive, and they can feel when a smile is forced, when it is stretched across the face as a mask rather than a reflection of genuine warmth. That is why true influence requires more than the physical movement of lips. It requires the alignment of inner emotion. When your smile arises from genuine appreciation, from the recognition of something valuable in the person standing before you, it carries a resonance that cannot be faked. Appreciation is the root of this resonance. When you cultivate the habit of noticing what is good in others, when you discipline your mind to see not only their flaws but their strengths, you naturally find yourself smiling in their presence. That smile is not an act. It is a reflection of the appreciation you feel. And when someone feels appreciated, when they sense that you have taken the time to notice something worthy in them, their entire being responds. They soften, they open, they lean toward you instead of away from you. Consider for a moment the times in your own life when someone offered you genuine appreciation. Maybe it was for a small act you thought no one noticed. Maybe it was for a quality in you that you had long overlooked. The moment they spoke it, you felt seen in a new way, you felt valued, you felt recognized. Appreciation has the power to awaken a person's own awareness of their worth, to remind them that they are not invisible in a world that often overlooks them. And when you are the one who awakens this awareness in others, you occupy a special place in their hearts. Influence is born not from authority, but from the deep bond that appreciation creates. A smile coupled with appreciation is one of the most potent combinations for human connection. Think about the people you are naturally drawn to. They are not always the most intelligent, not always the most accomplished, not always the most powerful. More often, they are the ones who make you feel good in their presence. They smile at you with warmth. They acknowledge your efforts. They notice your worth. Their presence becomes magnetic because they reflect back to you the best parts of yourself. This is not flattery. Flattery is shallow, manipulative, and easily detected. Appreciation, when authentic, carries weight because it is rooted in truth. It is not about exaggerating or inventing qualities. It is about seeing clearly what is already there. The more you practice this way of seeing, the more you realize that every person, no matter how hardened or distant they may appear, carries within them something worthy of appreciation. The key is to train your perception to find it. When you begin to live this way, your energy shifts. People begin to associate you with positivity, not because you are naive to challenges or blind to difficulties, but because you consistently choose to focus on the light within others. And as you smile more, as you appreciate more, you not only change how others feel about themselves, you change how you feel about yourself. Your nervous system calms, your mood elevates, your inner chemistry shifts toward greater balance and coherence. This principle carries tremendous implications for influence. People rarely remember what you say, but they always remember how you made them feel. A single smile can make them feel at ease. A single word of appreciation can make them feel valued. These seemingly small gestures linger long after the conversation ends. They create an emotional imprint that influences how others perceive you, trust you, and respond to you. Leadership rooted in criticism creates fear, but leadership rooted in appreciation creates loyalty. A smile and a word of encouragement can ignite motivation in ways that no command or demand ever could. When people feel that you see their effort, when they feel that you notice their progress, they are inspired to give more, to rise higher, to align with your vision. Influence then becomes effortless because it is built on the natural reciprocity of human connection. There is also a physiological truth to appreciation that science has uncovered. When you express appreciation, whether silently in your own mind or outwardly through your words, your heart rhythm becomes more coherent. This coherence radiates outward as a signal that others can feel. People may not consciously understand why they feel good around you, but their bodies pick up on it. They sense harmony, they sense safety, they sense alignment, and so they gravitate toward you. Imagine walking through your daily life embodying this state. Every interaction becomes an opportunity. The cashier at the store, the colleague in the hallway, the stranger you pass on the street, all of them carry within them the possibility of connection. A simple smile may be the highlight of their day. A word of appreciation may shift the trajectory of their thoughts. You never know the ripple effect these small acts may have, but you do know this: they will never be forgotten by the one who receives them. The magic of a smile and appreciation is not in their outward simplicity, but in their inward power. They are the keys to human hearts, subtle yet profound, ordinary yet transformative. When you practice them consistently, you begin to notice how the quality of your relationships deepens, how your influence expands, and how your own inner state rises to meet the best version of yourself. Every human being carries within them an invisible need, a silent request that often goes unspoken yet is always present, the desire to be recognized, the longing to feel significant. One of the simplest yet most profound ways to honor that need is by remembering someone's name and the details of their life. A name is not just a word, it is a symbol of identity, of history, of belonging. When you speak someone's name with sincerity, you are not simply addressing them, you are affirming their existence, acknowledging their individuality in a world where people often feel overlooked. Think about how it feels when someone remembers your name after only meeting you once. There is a spark of recognition, a subtle warmth that flows through you. You feel noticed, valued, important. In that moment, you are no longer just another face in the crowd. You are seen. That small act, though it may seem insignificant, can leave an imprint on the mind and heart of the person receiving it. It communicates, "You matter enough for me to remember you." Names carry energy. They are tied to a person's sense of self. Parents choose them carefully, stories are attached to them, identities are shaped around them. When you remember and use someone's name, you are tapping into something deeply personal. It is not merely about etiquette or manners, it is about connection. It is about signaling to the other person that you have paid attention, that you have stored a piece of their essence in your memory, and that you honor it by bringing it forth in conversation. Beyond names, there are the details, the fragments of someone's story that reveal who they are. The places they have traveled, the work they are passionate about, the challenges they have overcome, the family they love, the hobbies that light them up. These details may seem small, but to the one who shares them, they are pieces of their life. When you remember them, you are telling that person, "I value your story, I value your experience, I value you." There is power in remembering. Imagine a leader who not only greets their team members by name, but also recalls the personal details they once shared. The child's soccer game, the parent's surgery, the dream vacation they were saving for. That leader is not simply managing people, they are building bonds, they are establishing trust, they are creating loyalty that cannot be bought or demanded, only earned through genuine attention. In an age where people are constantly distracted, where conversations are often shallow and fleeting, the act of remembering becomes even more powerful. It requires presence. It requires you to step out of your own mental chatter and into true listening. Too often, when someone speaks, we are half engaged, waiting for our turn to respond, preoccupied with our own thoughts. But when you truly listen, when you hold onto the name they give you and the details they share, you are practicing one of the deepest forms of respect. And what happens within you when you begin to live this way, you expand your own awareness. You begin to realize that every person you encounter carries a universe within them. By remembering their name, by holding onto a detail of their story, you acknowledge that universe. You become more present, more attuned, more empathetic. You begin to shift the focus of connection from self-centeredness to other-centeredness, and in that shift, relationships deepen. Neuroscience reveals something fascinating here. Memory is strengthened by emotional engagement. When you genuinely care about someone, when you feel interest in their life, your brain encodes their details more deeply. This is why genuine interest is the foundation of remembering. It is not about forcing yourself to memorize names and facts. It is about cultivating authentic curiosity. When you care, remembering becomes effortless. When you are detached, forgetting becomes inevitable. Consider also the mirror effect. When you make the effort to remember someone's name and their story, they often feel compelled to do the same for you. They mirror back the respect and attention you have given them. The relationship shifts from a casual acquaintance to a meaningful connection. Influence grows not because you demanded it, but because you invested in the small, powerful gestures that speak directly to the human heart. Even in professional spaces, this principle holds extraordinary weight. Think about the difference between a manager who addresses employees as "Hey, you," versus one who greets them by name, who recalls that they are working late because their child's school event was rescheduled, who acknowledges the small victories along the way. Which leader inspires greater loyalty? Which leader earns respect not by position but by presence? Influence is not established in grand speeches or in rigid authority. It is established in the consistent practice of remembering, and it is not only about names and details of those closest to you. The person serving your coffee, the driver taking you to your destination, the receptionist at the office, all of them carry names and details that matter to them. When you make the effort to remember, you elevate everyday interactions into moments of significance. You create a ripple effect of recognition, a culture of respect, a pattern of seeing people for who they truly are. This practice also shapes your own inner state. When you discipline your mind to notice and remember, you strengthen your awareness. You sharpen your ability to be present. You begin to live less in the haze of forgetfulness and more in the clarity of connection. You stop moving through life in a blur of faces and start engaging in the richness of human individuality. And in doing so, you discover that remembering is not just about others. It is about transforming yourself into a more attentive, present, and influential being. There is a silent bridge that exists between every human being, an invisible thread that connects one heart to another. This bridge is called empathy, and it is one of the most powerful forces for influence that has ever existed. Influence is often misunderstood as persuasion, as the ability to convince or to dominate, but real influence does not arise from power or position. It arises from connection, and connection is born in empathy. The ability to feel with someone, to step into their perspective, to understand not just their words, but the emotions and experiences that live beneath those words. When you practice empathy, you are no longer standing apart, analyzing or judging from a distance. You are entering into another's reality. You are saying without words, "I see you, I hear you, I feel you," and that simple act changes everything. Because when people feel understood, when they feel that someone else has truly stepped into their shoes, their defenses lower. The walls they have built around their hearts begin to dissolve. They no longer need to fight to be seen, because they already are. And in that moment of recognition, your influence grows, not by force, but by resonance. Consider how often people go through life without feeling understood. They speak, but are interrupted. They share, but are dismissed. They hint at their emotions, but no one takes the time to notice. In such a world, empathy becomes rare, and because it is rare, it becomes priceless. The one who listens deeply, who feels beyond the surface, who reflects back not just words but emotions, becomes unforgettable. People may forget what you said, but they will never forget the way you made them feel when you empathized with them. Empathy is not the same as agreement. You do not have to adopt another person's perspective as your own to understand it. You do not have to validate harmful choices or accept every belief. Influence through empathy is not about surrendering your own values. It is about creating space where another person's inner world is honored. It is about saying, "I may not see the world exactly as you do, but I can appreciate why you see it that way. I can walk with you in your experience without losing myself in the process." This distinction is vital because it allows empathy to create connection without requiring conformity. The science behind empathy reveals why it is so powerful. Neuroscience has shown that human brains are wired for connection through mirror neurons, cells that fire both when we act and when we observe someone else acting. When you see someone in pain, your brain mirrors their pain. When you see someone smile, your brain mirrors their joy. This biological design allows us to feel what others feel, and when you consciously cultivate this ability, you amplify your capacity to influence. Because influence is not about pushing against someone's resistance, it is about aligning with their experience so fully that they willingly move with you. Imagine sitting across from someone in a difficult conversation. Without empathy, you might argue, defend, or attempt to overpower their point of view. The more you push, the more they resist. But with empathy, you lean in differently. You listen not just to their words, but to their emotion. You notice the frustration in their voice, the disappointment in their eyes, the tension in their body, and you respond not with defense, but with acknowledgement. I can see this is important to you. I can sense how much this matters. I understand why you feel that way. In that moment, something shifts. They no longer feel the need to fight because they have been understood. And from that place of understanding, real dialogue begins. Empathy also requires presence. It requires you to set aside the constant noise of your own mind, the urge to prepare your response, the impulse to prove your point, the habit of thinking only of yourself, and instead devote your full awareness to the other person. It is an act of humility, of surrendering the spotlight so that another may stand in it, even for a brief moment. And in that humility, you gain something far more powerful than control. You gain trust. Trust is the soil in which influence grows, and empathy is the water that nourishes it. Think of the people in your own life who have influenced you most deeply. Chances are, they were not the ones who dominated you or dictated to you. They were the ones who made you feel understood, the teacher who listened to your struggles instead of dismissing them, the friend who sat with you in silence when words could not touch your pain, the leader who cared enough to ask not just about your work, but about your life. These moments of empathy become anchors in our memory, shaping the way we see those individuals forever. Empathy also expands your own consciousness. By stepping into another's perspective, you are no longer limited to the narrow confines of your own view. You begin to see the world through multiple lenses. You discover nuances you had overlooked, truths you had ignored, possibilities you had never considered. This expansion makes you wiser, more adaptable, more capable of navigating the complexities of human interaction. Influence then becomes natural because you are not rigidly imposing one view. You are meeting others where they are and guiding them toward where they can go. There is also a profound energetic dimension to empathy. When you attune to another's emotional state, your body synchronizes with theirs. Your breathing shifts, your heart rate aligns, your energy field resonates with theirs. This is not abstract. It is measurable. Studies show that when people are emotionally connected, their physiological rhythms synchronize. This coherence creates a sense of unity, of togetherness, of harmony, and in that harmony, influence flows without resistance because people feel they are not being pulled, they are being accompanied. Empathy, then, is not weakness. It is not passivity. It is not simply nodding along. It is strength in its most refined form. It requires courage to set aside your ego, to suspend judgment, to step into someone else's experience. It requires awareness to notice the subtleties, to hear what is unsaid, to sense what is hidden beneath the surface. And it requires compassion to hold space for another's humanity without needing to control it. When you embody empathy, you stop trying to win arguments and start creating alignment. You stop focusing on manipulation and start focusing on resonance. And in that resonance, influence emerges naturally, not as something forced, but as the organic result of true human connection. True leadership is not defined by how loudly you speak, how forcefully you command, or how rigidly you control. True leadership emerges when people follow you not because they must, but because they want to. It is born not from domination, but from inspiration. To lead without domination is to embody a different kind of power, a power rooted in encouragement, trust, and the ability to bring out the best in others. Domination relies on fear. It seeks compliance through criticism, punishment, and authority. And while fear may create temporary obedience, it never creates loyalty. It never inspires genuine commitment. People may follow out of obligation, but inside they are resistant, waiting for the moment when they can escape, withdraw, or rebel. Leadership by domination fractures trust and leaves behind only resentment. But leadership without domination creates an entirely different reality. It fosters an atmosphere where people feel valued, supported, and capable of growth. At the heart of this principle is encouragement. Encouragement is fuel for the human spirit. A single word of recognition can ignite motivation far more effectively than any demand or threat. When you encourage someone, you are not ignoring their flaws or pretending challenges don't exist. You are choosing to focus on their potential. You are reminding them of their capacity to rise, to improve, to succeed. This act of belief is transformative. People often live beneath the weight of their own doubts, carrying silent fears that they are not good enough, not capable enough, not worthy enough. When a leader looks at them and says, "I see something in you," it awakens a part of them that may have been asleep for years. Consider the lasting impact of those who encouraged you in your own life. Perhaps it was a teacher who believed in your abilities when you doubted yourself, or a mentor who saw promise in you when you could not yet see it. Their words carried weight not because they held authority over you, but because they spoke to the truth within you. That encouragement stayed with you, fueling your choices, shaping your path, and influencing your actions long after the moment passed. That is the essence of leadership without domination. It creates ripples that endure because it plants seeds of belief in the soil of human potential. Another essential element of this kind of leadership is trust. To lead without domination requires you to release the need to control every detail, every outcome, every action. Instead, it invites you to empower others, to trust their abilities, to give them room to make decisions and learn through experience. Trust communicates respect. It says, "I believe you are capable." And when people feel trusted, they rise to meet that belief. They take ownership, they contribute more fully. They become invested not just in the outcome, but in the journey. Domination, on the other hand, breeds dependency. When leaders constantly control, correct, and criticize, people become hesitant, afraid of making mistakes. They learn to wait for instructions rather than take initiative. They play small because the space for creativity and growth has been suffocated. But when trust replaces control, initiative flourishes. People begin to bring new ideas, new solutions, new energy to the table. The collective intelligence expands and progress accelerates. Leading without domination also means leading by example. Influence is not sustained through words alone. It is embodied in the way you live. People pay more attention to what you do than what you say. A leader who demands respect but shows none will never hold influence for long. But a leader who treats others with dignity, who listens as much as they speak, who acts with integrity even when no one is watching, inspires through presence. They embody the standards they ask of others. They do not need to dominate because their life itself is the message. This principle extends beyond formal leadership roles. In families, in friendships, in communities, the temptation to dominate can appear whenever we want our way, whenever we want to assert our view. But domination closes hearts while encouragement and empathy open them. A parent who constantly criticizes their child may produce compliance, but a parent who believes in their child, who encourages effort and celebrates growth, creates a bond that lasts a lifetime. A friend who tries to control may lose trust, but a friend who listens, supports, and inspires becomes irreplaceable. Leadership without domination is not reserved for the workplace. It is a way of being that transforms every relationship you touch. Psychologically, encouragement and trust also reshape the brain. When people are criticized, the brain interprets it as a threat. Stress hormones are released, defenses rise, and creativity diminishes. But when people are encouraged, when their efforts are acknowledged, the brain releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with motivation and learning. This is why environments built on encouragement consistently outperform those built on fear. They foster innovation, collaboration, and resilience because people feel safe to take risks, safe to fail, and safe to grow. There is also a spiritual dimension to leading without domination. When you choose encouragement over criticism, trust over control, inspiration over fear, you are aligning with a deeper truth about human nature. People are not meant to be forced into their potential, they are meant to be guided toward it. Every individual carries a spark of possibility, and your role as a leader is not to dominate that spark, but to nurture it, to breathe life into it, to create conditions where it can grow into something greater. Leading without domination requires patience. It requires you to see beyond immediate results and trust in the long-term unfolding of growth. It requires humility, the willingness to release your ego's desire for control and instead focus on the higher purpose of elevating others. And it requires courage, because to lead in this way is to resist the temptation of fear-based authority and instead choose the more challenging path of love-based influence. When you embody this kind of leadership, people do not just follow your instructions. They follow your vision. They do not comply because they are afraid. They commit because they are inspired. They do not give the minimum required. They give their best because they feel seen, supported, and encouraged to become more than they were yesterday. When you look closely at the principles of winning friends and influencing people, you realize they are not just strategies for success. They are a way of being, a way of living, a way of embodying the highest version of yourself in every interaction. Genuine interest invites connection, reminding us that presence is the greatest gift we can give. A smile and appreciation lift the energy of a room, transforming ordinary moments into extraordinary exchanges. Remembering names and details affirms the deep human need to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be valued. Empathy allows us to cross the bridge into another's experience, creating bonds that transcend surface differences. And leading without domination awakens the potential in others, inspiring them not through fear, but through encouragement and trust. Each of these principles is simple, yet their power lies in consistency. The one who chooses to live them daily becomes magnetic, not because of manipulation, but because of authenticity. Influence ceases to be about control and becomes about resonance. Relationships shift. Opportunities expand, and life itself begins to reflect the energy you bring into it. The truth is that influence is not about changing others. It is about changing yourself first. By practicing presence, appreciation, empathy, and encouragement, you transform into someone people naturally want to follow, to trust, and to love. And as you embody these principles, you discover that the path to winning friends and influencing people is not about mastering others. It is about mastering the way you choose to show up in the world.